Welcome back to another episode of ASB Rural Innovation Week, where we're showcasing new innovations on farm. And tonight we're following on with the dairying theme and specifically looking at sustainability. We're going to be looking at two different operations, one in Southland where they use a worm farm to treat their effluent. But first off, we're in the central part of the North Island and we're going to be meeting up with the Flemings to see what they do with effluent to maintain this important resource behind me. So Tony, tell me about the farm.
We've been here 7 years and we milk 3,200 cows here, obviously at a 2.4 cow stocking rate. And the production we're doing here is 819,000 milk solids. We're continually going up year by year. The aim is to do 850 this year.
So what are the challenges?
We're a very high altitude farm here. We'll be one of the highest, if not the highest, at 800 metres. It's a very free draining soil, which obviously it is pumice, especially on the flats. And we can have a rain event of 200 millimetres overnight, and within 4 hours you wouldn't see the water laying around the place or any effect of that rainfall. So it's dairy-free draining.
So what about waterways on the property? Are they an issue for you?
For our business, streams are very important. Every stream is sensitive, but we're very aware that we've got to look after the environment, and it's a very big focus on, or for our business anyway, to make sure that we're doing our best in that area.
What about the original effluent system here on the farm?
It was a system that we thought about first thing in the morning, middle of the day, late at night. It was a system that was going to fail and just wasn't big enough. We were doing our best. We always had to have parts on standby, and we had to work very quickly if there was something going wrong, because the only other option for it, if we didn't fix it, was to overflow. So those things didn't happen, but it was probably a bit of good luck rather than good management, and it was a nightmare.
So David, tell me about the system.
Obviously at the end of milking there's a lot of effluent in the yard which we need to clean for the next milking. So we've got a scraper first which scrapes the yard and takes a lot of the solids down to the bottom of the yard. Then we dump 2 big tanks of water which cleans the yard for 70–80%. And then at the end we just hose up and all that ends up in a sump at the bottom of the yard which takes out most of the stones and sand.
When it goes into the first pond, there's a stirrer which mixes it and keeps it very even, and from there it gets pumped to the separator, and then the separator takes those solids and puts them in the pile.
So can you just tell me a little bit more about the separator?
The separator is a Yardmaster corkscrew separator, so it works under pressure, and it pushes the water out of the solids. The water will drain and the solids get pushed out the top and end up on a concrete pad where it's stored and managed until the time is right for us to spread it onto the pasture.
So after the separator, through to the sand trap and then on to the large pond?
And there's a 3-month storage pond down there, which is fantastic for us. For every pond that's full, there's $10,000 worth of nitrogen in it, so basically there's a $30,000 saving, which goes over 110 hectares that we irrigate from.
So, you know, what's the dimensions of the pond you've got here?
There's 7 million litres. We've got 1,200 millimetres of rain falling each year, but we have 2 big events where we could get anything over 200 millimetres at one time. So we've got to be very aware with our pond levels that we don't actually have our ponds too full so that we can accommodate an event when it does happen.
So what's the lining made of?
It's plastic and it's got a 20-year guarantee, but so it's pressure tested and everything before you actually put your water in, so it's very safe.
With that pond, we can pump that out in 3 days over our area, as long as recommendations from the regen allows us to.
So also tell me how the regen system works and how you put that in.
We got approached by regen in the initial stages when they were setting the system up. Massey University was involved. They did the soil testing to know what soil we have. So they put a moisture meter in, which measures soil temperature as well as moisture, obviously. Rain gauges, as well as a pond level sensor, and all that data is then recorded, sent to them online on the computer, and then there's a web page which gives me a recommendation, as well as a text message every day at 8:10, which tells me exactly how much I can irrigate. If I'm in an area where I haven't got cell phone coverage but I do have internet, I can still look on the internet to find out how much we can irrigate. If I'm lying on the beach in Hawaii, I can still find out what the recommendation is and tell my boys at home, this is how much you can apply.
Have you done that yet?
No.
We've got a timing switch. We know if we pump for 1 hour, we apply 5 mils. And we've got a recommendation that comes to our phone. So if it's 10 mils, it's 2 hours. So obviously we don't get too much over that until the summer. So basically we set up the paddock and we apply the effluent at that stage, and it'll pump for an hour, and then we change the sprinklers again.
Because of the size of the storage, we don't have to apply every day. We can actually wait until we are ready. If we get a recommendation of 20 mil, I might not apply 20 mil because I prefer it to go further rather than apply a big dump in one place. I still prefer to spread it over a bigger area to get more bang for buck.
Yes, once the sprinklers are turned on, we then go out to the paddock and make sure every sprinkler is doing what it's supposed to do. Even though there shouldn't be blocks, we don't take it for granted there won't be. And they're all fittings, so obviously they still can blow off. We don't take it for granted at all that doesn't happen. So we react quickly once that happens.
There is a checklist for whoever deals with the effluent system on the day, and it is in regards to the timer, how many hours they set it for. They've got to tick off whether they check the sprinklers, that they were all working accordingly, and even if there's any ponding issue in the paddock, like they might have put the sprinkler in an area that has not got a hollow in it and there's a bit of ponding, they've got to record that so we can then make sure we don't put the sprinkler there again.
And the great thing about the system is the labour saving, because you're not under pressure when you're doing it. You can actually pick your time when you've got some spare time to actually shift those sprinklers so that you're not under pressure and you do it right, which is huge for the staff. And I think you can't underestimate the value of holding good people with a good system.
How does it compare what you were doing, what you're doing now versus your consents?
The process that we went through really made us as farmers understand what we could do better. Learning from that was a big win for our business, and as farmers, understanding that was quite important as well.
So what does it mean, you know, you've got to work within the council regulations?
The council get everything, and we're very transparent with them, so they actually understand what we want to get out of it, and we understand what they want to get out of it. So it works both ways. And the system has been fantastic, and the support we got to put that system in, we're very thankful for. It feels like a partnership, and that's very important to us, and that will continue. When we turn our pumps on now, we take the reading, and then when we finish the pumping, we take the reading again. It gives the council a lot more confidence.
Yep.
And all we want to do as a business is very much tick every box.
So have you got things in mind for further improvements then?
We're not closed off to anything. Science is moving so fast, and we have got a system that we can add on to and do different things.
Well, that's a very exciting thing that we've just introduced on the farm. It's not fully set up yet, but we've bought the track map system, which will allow us to put every sprinkler in the appropriate position and apply effluent very accurately. And again, like I mentioned, if there is an issue in an area where a sprinkler is and it causes a bit of ponding or something like that, we can then record that and make sure that that sprinkler doesn't get placed there again. So that's in the next month or so, we'll have that all set up, and it'll be very exciting for me to have anyone being able to turn up and shift the sprinklers, because all they have to do is look at their screen and follow a little arrow, and it will tell them, drop it here, and it's in the right place.
So David, what does sustainability mean for you?
It probably goes back to the day that I applied for the position with Tony and Carter. Knowing the system they were putting in at that stage, the system was being set up, gave me a huge amount of confidence. Even though now I look at the system differently, where I look at it as a benefit to me growing more grass. At the time, there was some consent issues going on in the industry where people had problems, and as an employee, there was not a risk that I could take. I could not work somewhere where I knew the system was not up to scratch. And here I knew there was no issues. It was safe, very good for me. So I knew that it was never going to be an issue in regards to ponds overflowing and all that sort of stuff, which gave me great confidence. Having now been here for a bit longer and understanding the area that we're in, with the streams and the water and the nature, I understand how important it is to have a good system in place to secure the future and to be able to farm here for a long time.
So what does sustainability mean for you?
I think for any type of farming, it's key. We're putting our footprint here, and if we want to be here for the next 100 years, we've got to be very aware. And for this business, it is key that we use every process that is available to us to actually attain a very environmental mindset. We've all got to make money, there's no question, but it doesn't mean that you have to neglect what you're doing. I want to see my kids playing a clean stream, see trout swimming, see catch an eel. It's a Kiwi way of life, and I would hate to think in 60 years that wasn't there for the grandchildren or anything like that. So for us, it's very important.
So that's the Flemings and what they're doing with their effluent to sustain this valuable resource. Now let's head down south to the Papawai Equity Partnership to see what they're doing with their worm farm. So we're here in Centrebush in Southland, and we're going to be following up on sustainability. And we're going to be catching up with the team at the Papawai Partnership to talk to them about how they're using a worm farm to treat their dairy effluent.
How are you going?
Right, so Dallas, tell us a bit about the farm.
Oh yeah, no, this farm's 213 hectares, James. It's just bounded by 2 roads, and yeah, it's all in one block, which is a good thing with the dairy farm. Going to be milking about 560 cows this year, and 238 to 250,000 milk solids has been the range.
So what made you put in the worm farm?
Well, I go on a lot of dairy farms in my role, and I guess I just wasn't quite convinced about the big holding ponds, and I suppose at heart I'm in a love affair with worm farms. I was aware that at Edendale they had a small experimental farm which was processing human and dairy effluent on a small scale. I was well aware of what tiger worms could do because I'd owned them and given them to people for about 20 to 25 years and turned all the compost around our veggie garden to soil. So they were about the only thing I knew I could employ for nothing and didn't need an employment contract.
So did you have to get some experts involved?
Well, I discovered a bit of background information ex-South America, and that's when I ran into Steve Mace and Max Parkin, who had previously been at the Southland Dairy Company and designed most of the systems there. And yeah, one thing led to another, and I thought there's got to be a pioneer here somewhere. And the Donnellys, who are in partnership with us here, agreed to give it a shot, and yeah, we're very satisfied with progress.
This is where it finishes for Matt, and it's the beginning of the trip of the effluent treatment system. So you can see all of the solid material, fecal matter, coming off the yard, and from here down through the grate, gravity fed over to the stone trap, which is the beginning, the first process. From the yard down through a pipe into this chamber here, James, which is a stone trap. Okay, so what's happening here is the flow comes from the yard. In simple terms, the stone trap is designed just to slow take the energy out of the water, so that any bits of gravel and stones that are picked up by the calves
just settle on the bottom.
Settle on the bottom, and then we get the effluent running through, as you can see there. And that's sort of the first part of the solid separation system. Matt will clean this out probably twice a year.
Yep.
And then from there, just gravity fed over to the next part of the process, which is a double-sided weeping wall. So from the stone trap, and you can see it just...
Usually you'll be pumping out pretty quick out of here. Or...
Yes, yeah, under normal sort of, when they're CIPing the the cowshed. There's quite a rate of knots coming through here. So you can just see it running into this side of the weeping wall. And you can see the solids starting to separate and pressing against the wall here. So if you have a look at the gaps, the solids hit this, and the solids have also got, there's a lot of weight in there. Okay, so what happens is the weight of the solids, they start to squeeze up on themselves, and forcing the liquid through. And what you'll actually see along the weeping wall is you'll see some areas where it's actually weeping through, and it might be down there, and then that'll block off, and then it might start weeping through there. So it's sort of, water always looks for the weakest point, and then once it's found that, the solids slowly seal the gaps, and then it finds the next weakest point.
Is this pretty established technology?
This technology's been around for a long, long time, and I think they're a great system because they're passive. If they're well constructed, then really they just sit there and do their thing, and they don't need a lot of maintenance or attention. And I think that's really important because it's minimising risk for farmers and for the environment. So this is the leftover from last season. They come in with a digger, and it sat there for quite a while, so a lot of the moisture's come out of it over a long period of time, so it just all squeezes up and it becomes quite dry, so it's really easy to handle when they spin it onto the paddock. From the central chamber you can hear the pump rattling away there. We pump it over to the 3 tanks that you can see over there. And the reason that we do that is because Matt's milking twice a day. So the total volume that we get out of there daily is about 40,000 litres a day, 40 cubes. But we get that in 2 bites, in the morning and afternoon milking. So we need some equalisation or buffer storage, so that's why we use these tanks here. Okay, James, what we have here is the equalisation tanks. So as I mentioned, you've got 40,000 litres a day in 2 chunks. We apply that over a 24-hour period on the biofiltro bed, and here we've got 90,000 litres of storage. It also provides us also with a little bit of additional settling. So we do get some solid settling in the tanks, and we've got an automated flush valve which flushes from the tank back by gravity back into the weeping wall as well. Let's go and have a look at the biofiltro bed, eh?
Cool.
Okay. Okay, James, so here we are. This is the biofiltro bed. So this is the heart and soul of the system, James. In simple terms, you've seen the effluent spray out of the wobblers. It's applied across the surface of the bed and it filters through. From there, people start, when they hear worms, they think, oh, it's the worms that are doing all the work, but that's actually not quite right. What happens in the bed, in the media, we've got a whole, there's a whole living system. There's a whole lot of microflora, bacteria, protozoas, nematodes, little mushrooms, all sorts of living things. The worms are the top order. So the worms are feasting on all of these bacteria inside the media. The system works because that bacteria require oxygen to survive. So this is an aerobic system. And the worms, as they pass through the sawdust, they create little pathways. So they're oxygenating the bed. And so that allows the bacteria to grow. And it's one of those symbiotic things where, the worms are feeding off the bacteria, but it's the bacteria that are actually consuming the nutrients and the organic material. So the worm comes along and eats the bacteria. That gets assimilated into the worm body. At night, the worms come to the top of the surface, they defecate, and so after a period of time you get a layer of worm humus.
Right.
And so all of the nutrients, they don't just disappear, they just come to the top of the bed. Okay? And so that's how it's removed from the liquid stream. So it's just, as I said before, it's, for want of a better words, it's nature in a box. It really is quite a neat, intriguing thing. Love it.
All natural.
It's all natural.
Right, so how many worms have we got in here?
We don't know. Because we don't actually count them, but it's fair to say there's millions of them, and they replicate at quite a fast rate. A worm will produce an egg probably about every 30 to 35 days, and inside every egg is between 10 and 15 viable little baby worms.
Can you have too many in here?
No, because it's a self-sustaining population. And the other thing is, and it's important for dairy farmers, is that during the dry season, when they're not milking, and so the system's shut down, there's an alternative food source, which is the sawdust. Okay, so it's a carbon-based system.
Right, so what are what's the white piping coming out of here too?
That also just aids aeration of the whole system. So under here we've got a false floor, and then we've just got these tubes, and then of course you've got all the worms going through and just keeping the whole system aerated. Really important.
You have to clean it out and...
Yeah, that's a good question. What happens is, and I mentioned before, you get over a period of time a layer of worm humus, okay? And that's actually really nutrient rich. What you can do is you scrape that off, the top maybe 100 to 150 mils. Then you've got this inert, friable, peat-like substance, which is, you know, you could put a pencil in it and grow a tree, you just know by looking at it, you know, and that can be applied to the land and just ploughed into the land. So you're not losing nutrients, it's just in a different place, in a different form. And of course, all of this is about mitigating the risk of runoff and dairy shed effluent appearing in waterways. So the whole purpose of this is to stop that. Because of course what's coming out of here is treated dairy shed effluent waste, but typically it's got a BOD of less than 50, total suspended solids of less than 50, and fecal coliforms less than 1,000. So, you know, it's getting really quite close to sort of recreational bathing standard. We'll have a look at the discharge. So what's been treated after it's been through the biofiltro bed. So we'll just open this up, out of there, through the worm basket, because, well, Dallas told me he would be rather upset if he thought that any of them escaped. So he said he's paid for them to work, so they should get back in there. So we just catch them there. So as you can see, UV chambers, so there's 3 sets of lights going across weirs. Because the total suspended solids are so low coming out of the bed, and the liquid has a clarity to it, it lends itself to ultraviolet treatment. So what we do is we just run it over some rectangular weirs where we've got about 8 mils of depth and UV lights above it, and we just polish off the remaining bacteria. And as you can see, the discharge is completely different than what's been applied to the bed. Okay, James, so this is the discharge. You can see what's that. Smell that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, there's no smell to that at all. Eh?
Nah, that's right.
So there we go. Cheers.
So you're pretty happy with the worm farm system and how it's performing? It looks pretty clean and tidy.
Yeah, I can walk in there with my shoes any old day of the week, and I can't say that about every effluent system in New Zealand. I've seen all sorts of variations. I really like the cleanliness, the lesser area of land, and very, very well protected and safe environment.
And there's no smell either.
I can't smell a thing, but I can't say that very often. I'm happy today. I look at that pile of humus sitting out behind us. I think by the time we spread that on some paddocks, totally environmentally friendly, full of good balance of nutrients. I like the way the worm bed's working. Look, I'm very confident about it, and I just think it's a way for the future.
Well, that's it for the worm farm here in Southland and our second piece on sustainability. If you'd like to be considered for a farm tour of either of tonight's operations, visit the Country 99 TV website to register your interest. Now tomorrow night, we're going to be coming to you from Golden Bay and we're going to be talking about diversification. So we'll see you tomorrow on ASB Rural Innovation Week, same time, same place.